What is up, YouTube? It's Heretic here, and I am back with another deck. We're going to look at a list pretty similar to one that I showed you guys in the Jolteon-EX deck video here, and then take it for a spin in a random battle. This is a deck that I feel is a pretty darn strong play for states, and that is Mega Manectric and a pure lightning build, excluding the Regirock and the Articuno and all that stuff. And I'll get into why that is here in a moment. So look at our line here. We run 4 regular Manectric EXs. Only 3 Megas, however, though. I've always found with Mega Manectric in particular, and I don't really know why, but the 4-3 kind of like pseudo pyramid line there tends to work a little bit better for me. Not really sure why. I know with pretty much every other Mega Evolution line, I usually just run the same number, you know, like a 3-3 or a 4-4, but with Manectric, it's kind of always been a 4-3 for me. That's just kind of the way it's worked out best when I've tried it. Alternative attackers, we have Raikou, which is a pretty powerful one-prize attacker, 120 HP, and if it has any lightning energy on it, it takes 20 less damage due to its ability, Shining Body. And then Thunderlance for 3 energy is pretty much the same as Keldeo-EX's attack, only in lightning form. 50 plus an additional 20 for every lightning energy attached to it. And since that's all we run, you'll be dealing at least 110 damage every time you attack with this guy. So some of our other attackers, looks like we've got one Jolteon-EX, and this is the newcomer from Generations, and this is really a Night March counter above all else. Flash Ray, the second attack, for 1 lightning and 2 colorless, dealing 70 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon. So if they're not running the Vespiquens along with their Night Marchers, and it's just Pumpkaboo and Joltik, this completely shuts them down. They cannot touch this guy, and if you can get him charged up, go ahead and try to just, I guess, don't put anything else down on your board and just let the Jolteon kind of wail away on him. And if you do get into a Jolteon War, Swift actually can deal damage even against a Flash Ray, because this attack's damage isn't affected by weakness resistance or any other effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. But otherwise, I think we just probably stick with Flash Ray, and if we see another Jolteon, just use Mega Man. Both Jolteon and Mega Manectric have free retreat, so a lot of versatility there as well. Finally, we run 1 copy of Pikachu EX, and this is something that really isn't mandatory to the list. This is something I've found that I actually like quite a bit, is that he can be a home run hitter, late game, Overspark for 1 lightning and 2 colorless, discard all lightning attached to this Pokemon, and then you do 50 damage for every lightning energy that you discarded. So if you get 3-4 energy on there, you can be hitting 150, 200 damage. And this really does give the deck another element, and that is something Mega Manectric decks have often lacked, the ability to OHKO things. And so Pikachu EX it may be on a frail 2-prize body, but it can definitely do that. And then we have 2 copies of Shaman EX just to help us try to set up, no pun intended, and draw our cards and get everything into play. So next we're going to go ahead and look at our supporters. We run 1 Hex Maniac. We don't really rely on abilities here. Raikou has its ability that can come in handy sometimes, and then we have Shaman. Otherwise, we don't do too much with abilities, so locking down our opponents is definitely a good way to go. Especially those speed decks that rely on a whole bunch of Shamans, EX decks relying on Hoopa, or just something that, you know, like Vespiquen, even running unknowns and stuff like that, taking away item lock from decks like Trevenant or Vileplume. A lot of versatility there with Hex Maniac. We run 1 copy of Judge for Shuffle, Draw, and Disruption. Just kind of standard. And then we play 2 Lysanders to pick and choose where we want to take knockouts. Maybe something's got damage on it. Maybe there's a Shaman on our opponent's bench. Just go ahead and take that off the board. And 4 Professor Sycamores, pretty much the norm. Then we run 3 copies of Rough Seas. You could try to get a little techie with this and try to run Silent Lab, But ultimately, I feel like Rough Seas just is too good in this deck not to run, especially given the fact that Trevenant is seeing play. And this card single-handedly beats Trevenant as long as you can keep it in play for the most part. Just being able to erase all the damage Trevenant Break does, forcing them to go to a second energy, and also keeping their stadium in play. You know, you kind of get into a stadium war with them, but for the most part, just being able to take damage off your Pokemon, especially when you got a big body like Mega Manectric EX that can deal 110 damage consistently, really just gives you a great Trevenant matchup. We'll start looking at our item cards here. We run 3 Battle Compressors. I found this to be pretty much the perfect number in Mega Manectric. It's enough to get to be able to get our Sycamores and all our draw supporters and that other stuff into the discard pile, as well as our basic energies for Turbo Bolt acceleration, without having to run bad draw supporters like Professor Birch or Shauna. So pretty solid card there. We run 3 copies of Max Elixir. This could conceivably let us get a turn 1 Assault Laser, or kind of help speed up other attacks, because Mega Manectric accelerates 2 energy, so we'll still need 1 more energy from somewhere to be able to launch an attack with Jolteon, Pikachu, or Raikou. So just another little alternative thing we can do for energy acceleration. And then we have 2 Max Potions. This card being back in the standard format is obviously pretty big. With Max Potion, you can just use Mega Manectric, accelerate onto another Mega Manectric, and then when the active one takes a hit, Max Potion it off, free retreat to the one on the bench, and then just re-accelerate that energy. So just kind of a fun way to deny our opponent's prizes. It's pretty darn effective in this deck. Next we run 1 Super Rod. This just to get, in case we have to Sycamore away Mega Manectrics early, or maybe, you know, just if we need to get something back for whatever reason. That's usually what you're going to use it for, is just Mega Mans. But for whatever reason, if we need to get, you know, maybe 1 energy card back, maybe we've got plenty in the discard pile or on our board already, just kind of whatever you need there. We run 4 copies of Trainer's Mail. It's just really to reach for more trainer cards, especially helpful with the VS Seeker Battle Compressor engine, again, like I said, so we don't have to run Birch or Shauna. It can also just kind of help us get the cards we need a little bit more quickly. 4 VS Seekers, like I said, you know, pretty standard. Compressed supporters, VS Seeker to retrieve them, basically search them from the deck, and also reuse something you already used. Makes 1 copy of something turn into potentially up to 5 if you really need it. So there's not really too much more to say about that. And then we play 2 copies of Floatstone. Now, Jolteon and Mega Manectric already do have free retreat, but regular Manectric, Shaman, Raikou, and Pikachu all have a 1 retreat cost, and sometimes, even though it's 1 energy, we do not want to have to pay that retreat cost, because that can slow us down by 1 turn, and sometimes that is all it takes to alter the course of the game. So we do run a couple of Floatstones for that purpose. And finally, 3 Manectric Spirit Links, since we run 3 Mega Manectrics. Enough of those to keep our Manectrics Mega Evolving without having to end our turn very often when doing that. And 4 Flash Energies. This is crucial in my opinion. I like playing the full 4, since we do have room in an all-electric build, because Gallade is a thing, and we may start seeing Garchomp or see Lucario or something, and you do not want to fall weak to weakness at the hands of something like that. That is really, really tough to have to deal with. So 4 Flash Energies for that. And then we still have our 7 basic Lightning Energies in case we go up against something that is absolutely loaded with Enhanced Hammers and the such. And also to accelerate with both Max Elixir and Mega Manectric. So that is our list, and we're going to take it for a spin and see how it does in a game here. Okay, so it looks like we're going up against either a Night March or some kind of a Crobat variant here. I'll wait for our opponent to call the coin. And so our opponent wins the coin flip. And we'll see what happens here. Might tell us a little bit about what deck our opponent's playing in. He or she does choose to go first. Something about those Pikachu sleeves showing up on a lot of these matches. I will point that out. So we'll go ahead and lead the Raikou, and then we have the Jolteon for if we are up against a Night March deck, because that will be a golden opportunity of a card to have. And we are going up against Night March, so Jolteon, you are my buddy for this one. And hopefully he doesn't target that down too quickly, because, well, we know that probably will be the strategy here. Night March player, unless he plays Vespiquen, will see that Jolteon and say, that thing's got to go right now. So we see a Fighting Fury Belt, and that will go onto Joltik, along with a double colorless energy, and we'll see where we go from here. And maybe if there's even a little bit of a donk factor available, if he doesn't get something else on the bench. Of course, that would require us to hit quite a few things. And instead we see a Hex Maniac. So we won't be able to play Shaman to draw more cards this turn, but we will be able to use Trainer's Mail here, which will get us, have a look at, let's see, we're just going to go with the Battle Compressor here. And then before we try to compress energy out, let's go ahead and play this Max Elixir. Well, we've got more energy in the deck to try and accelerate one onto Jolteon. And then we can play our Battle Compressor, discarding, let's see here, we can get one of those out of the deck. Let's go ahead and get a second one. I think we'll just leave it at 1 for now. We really won't be needing Pikachu in this matchup, but, well, sometimes they run Target Whistle, so I'm not sure if I want to compress that. Let's see here. Get rid of Judge, I feel like, and probably Hex Maniac if she's in here. If not, we can always just discard another energy. I feel like that's definitely an option. Okay, so we can do that, and then play an Ultra Ball here, discarding these two. Don't think Rough Seas is going to be too big of an issue or too big of a deal in this matchup, given that Night March primarily is just going to be trying to OHKO all my attackers. So we can put Manectric down and then play a Professor Sycamore. So we will see a fresh 7 cards, including our other 3 Manectric EXs right there. So we'll go ahead and put another energy onto Jolteon and just try to get him going right away. And we can pass our turn at that. And of course, next turn we will need a Float Stone if we want to get Raikou out of the active in order to start swinging with Jolteon-EX. So we see an Ultra Ball here, discarding Lampent and Buddy Buddy Rescue for a Pumpkaboo. And so there goes Pumpkaboo with a double colorless and maybe a Professor Sycamore, and instead it's a Shaman, so we will see a fresh 6 cards drawn off the top of the deck. And at this point I gotta wonder if he's running Maxie's Gallade in here to counter Jolteon. And Flash Energy would help us out in that situation. We see a Puzzle of Time, so we'll see if he's playing 2 copies to retrieve 2 cards out of his discard then, or just rearranging his top 3 cards. So just kind of waiting on that. And it looks like he's just rearranging his top 3. So then we will see an Acrobike and a Lampent go into the discard pile that way. So really just waiting on that inevitable Battle Compressor that we still have not seen. Trainer's Mail here. So definitely digging deep into the deck, trying to find what I'm guessing a Battle Compressor. Looks like failing the Trainer's Mail. Playing another Trainer's Mail here, so lots and lots of resources, pretty much like Night March will usually do on turn 1, just playing a whole bunch of cards, and we see a Zero Sick. So most of those decks, the standard Night March variants, will run Zero Sick. We see Ultra Ball discarding that Zero Sick along with a Lysander for another Shaman, and Shaman will once again draw our opponent's hand up to 6 cards, plus 5 here, and really just waiting on something. Still have not seen a Battle Compressor yet from our opponent. And we know there's a couple of Lampents in the discard pile, but that appears to be it. So only hitting 40 damage right now with Night March is really not going to get him anywhere. And he needs to start taking knockouts and probably play a Lysander this turn to take out Jolteon as well, because otherwise things may get a little bit hairy, or I guess spiky for him, as Jolteon sits there and continues to lay down the threat of Flash Ray. So we see him rearrange his top 3 and then play Acrobite to the tune of that, discarding yet another Lampent. And still cannot believe he has not hit a Battle Compressor yet. This is kind of crazy. So we'll see. Of course, if we see a Professor Sycamore, then we know we will not have to worry about a Lysander this turn, but I think he knows he needs to play Lysander. And instead, we just see a Night March for 70 damage, 60 plus the 10 off of Fighting Fury Belt, so definitely, I really don't think that's what he wanted to see. And in this instance, since we do have Super Rod in the deck, I do believe we're just going to go ahead and throw all these Manectrics out. So we will attach Flash Energy to Jolteon and just throw it away and try to hit Floatstone. So there is Trainer's Mail we have, so we can probably go ahead and do a... I think we can do a Ultra Ball here. Let's see. And it looks like we can discard... let's see here. Let's go with Lightning and... probably the Max Potion, I think, to thin out the deck a little bit. Let's see here. We can afford to draw a little bit off Shaman, I think, right now. As long as outside of Jolteon we don't leave 6 prizes worth of Pokemon on the board. And so let's go ahead and grab Manectric Spirit Link out of there. Go ahead and attach that to Jolteon and set up for 3 cards. And once again, we do not see, and now we really don't want to be laying anything else down, but once again, we do not see a Floatstone, so it looks like we are going to have to wait one more turn before Jolteon can swing, and that really does kind of stink. All those Manectrics in the discard pile will be waiting on Super Rod for sure to help out with that, but it looks like we're going to have to pass our turn here. Could have always Shaman for 2 more cards, but that would put us in a situation where we would have a few too many available prizes on the board, I feel like. Whereas we really want to have Jolteon-EX running, kind of flying solo in this match here with Flash Ray. So we'll see what our opponent does, and if maybe there is a play here. Depending on if he runs 1 or 2 copies of Lysander. He also has 2 Puzzles of Time left and all 4 VS Seekers. So plenty of resources. And instead we see a Hex Maniac yet again. And a Night March to knock out our Raikou. And I can be okay with that. We can bring Jolteon right up to the active as it has a free retreat cost. And we can put a Flash Energy right down onto Mega Manectric. Let's see here. What do we have? I don't think there's really too much of a need to be in a hurry to play any of this stuff, so we can just go ahead and Flash Ray for 70 damage and a knockout, grabbing our first prize and preventing all damage done to Jolteon by basic Pokemon during our opponent's next turn. So I guess now the question is, does he run Gallade, or is there maybe a Vespiquen line that we haven't yet seen? Because as far as anything else, it remains to be seen if he's even got a way to deal with Jolteon right now. So we see a Dimension Valley come down. And there's Teammates, so he will be able to search his deck for any 2 cards here. If he runs an Enhanced Hammer, we may be seeing that. One of the reasons why I chose not to play any of the draw supporters last turn, just because I kind of wanted to hold that other energy in my hand, since we've got 3 Lightning in the discard already and 3 attached. The 7th energy is in hand, which means that between Flash and Lightning, we've got 4 left in the deck, and well, between the deck and prizes. So we'll see a Fighting Fury Belt, and there is the first Battle Compressor of the game on our opponent's side. Discarding 2 Joltics, it looks like, and a Lampent. So that will bring the damage count up considerably, but our opponent passes turn, so we can go ahead and attach another Flash Energy onto Mega Manectric, and then we will see we'll use Flash Ray again. It won't get us a knockout, but it will deal 70 damage to Pumpkaboo which is perfectly acceptable in my book, seeing as to how we gain the effect of not taking any damage. So, another thing, like I mentioned before, about our bench, even if both of these Pokemon get knocked out, they are only worth a total of 4 prizes between the two of them, and our opponent has 5 prizes remaining, so Jolteon will continue to be able to attack and lay damage down on the table. So here we do see a Lysander, so it looks like we will be giving up a couple of prizes here as he brings up Shaman and knocks it out with Night March for, let's see, 150 damage. So he's eventually going to get to that point, I think, where he's going to be able to, with his final Night Marcher, knock out Mega Manectric, but then he would just be taking an immediate knockout right back on his last Night Marcher. So if he does not have another attacker, maybe a second copy of Buddy Buddy Rescue would be his way out of that. So we do see our Super Rod. We can go ahead and play that. Let's put a couple energies back along with, let's see here, probably only put one of them. We could put a Manectric back, and I think we'll go ahead and put Raikou back as well. Really, again, not needing to play any of our draw supporters here. And we can just instead go ahead and get the energy off the table with Flash Ray and continue to protect our Jolteon. And we see a Max Elixir, so most of the cards that we're drawing here, not all, but most of what we're drawing here is pretty much irrelevant for the most part, as we're not really using them to do a whole lot. And with now 8 Night Marchers in our opponent's discard, all 4 Lampents, 3 Joltics, and 1 Pumpkaboo. So there's 1 more Joltik left, and then after the Pumpkaboo on the board, we will see 2 more still. So looks like he has opted to go with Pumpkaboo as his primary attacker here. Understandable, as Fighting Fury Belt brings it up to 100 HP, which allows it it forces us to deal 2 attacks with Flash Ray in order to take a knockout. However, it's still millions and millions times better to be able to continue to do that as opposed to retreating into Turbo Bolt for the one shot, only to have a Lysander bring up our Jolteon that has not used Flash Ray for a turn and simply knock it out. So from here, see, we do have a Lysander in our discard and a pair of VS Seekers, so we can start taking our prizes a little more quickly. And instead, we just see a concession from our opponent. So right there, you can see the pure power of Jolteon-EX, just dealing 70 damage a turn. Might not seem like a lot, but against a deck that is all basic Pokemon, just absolutely taking control. And so that really, I think, has to be a factor going into our state championships here. We're going to go ahead and play one more game now. Okay, and it looks like colorless, water, and grass is what we're seeing, so should be interesting. And our opponent will get to call who goes first, so looks like we're going to be going second. And instead, okay, so he's actually going to choose to have us go first. And this hand is nowhere near as good as the last one was. Absolutely no way no form of draw support, no bench Pokemon, so we're really just flying solo with this 1 Manectric EX. And we'll see what happens here. And we do see oh man, we have got another Vileplume deck coming down. These things have, if you wonder why I say another, we have been seeing a lot of these, at least I have been seeing a lot of these things online, but so we just attach a Lightning Energy here, and it looks like that's all we're going to be able to do. Vileplume and Miltank. So I'm guessing Regice, yep, that's going to be the other attacker, and that may end up doing to us what Jolteon did to our previous opponent, so maybe a little karma there. We see a Shaman EX drawing 4 additional cards for our opponent. Forest of Giant Plants already in play. There is Gloom, and we'll see if Vileplume immediately follows it up. We see a Dive Ball here for probably another Regice, and instead, Manaphy EX, not bad. I like that. So also granting free retreat, and there is Vileplume right there. So the item lock is on board. And there is Professor Sycamore discarding Miltank and another Vileplume, so we may take an 80 damage hit right here. Instead, it looks like our opponent just passes. So we can go ahead and attach an energy to Manectric and draw a measly 2 cards off of Shaman. See if we can't hit something. Looks like, alright, so we've got a Professor Sycamore. be able to give us some draw power here. And we do hit a Lysander, which is good news. We have another Manectric here. Might as well go ahead and put that down and then use Assault Laser. Now, would have been nice to hit a Mega Manectric as well as that Lysander, although unfortunately Regice has 10 more HP than we would prefer there, as it would not be one-shotted by a Manectric's attack. But we will see an energy, so we'll see if he chooses to retreat or attack for 80 damage with that Miltank. We see Birch, and he risks it for the Biscuit and gets it. 7 cards, and there is a powerful Friend's attack for 80 damage. So going into our turn, and we see another energy, so we might as well start charging up the second Manectric. And we'll just go ahead and take a knockout here instead of Lysandering. Maybe next turn then we can Lysander up the Vileplume and try to stall him out. So we get a Shaman off the prizes. And so now we'll see if maybe another Miltank comes down, or it looks like he's just going to bring up Oddish as kind of a sacrificial lamb kind of deal here. And we could Lysander Shaman for an easy 2 prizes. We could Lysander Regice and try to lay some damage on it, or we could Lysander up the Vileplume. And we see an AZ here, so Vileplume coming off the board for the turn. And of course will be laid back down afterwards. Such a powerful card. But he does attach a Fighting Fury Belt onto Regice, so that will grant it more HP, which could definitely be a problem. Otherwise, however, it will allow us to deal 110 or 120 damage to it. I'm sorry. So maybe if we can find something else to attack with. Of course, Raikou is our only non-EX attacker, so that definitely does spell trouble. But since he used his AZ and did not VS Seeker for it, we may be able to simply bring up the Vileplume and try to stall it out. To check out the discard pile, not too much in there. But we can go ahead and Lysander this guy up and try to start attacking it. Of course, that Regice will be ready to start hitting here pretty soon. A double colorless energy away. But with no items available, we will probably either a water energy attached for turn, which is not happening here, or an AZ to get Vileplume out of the active spot. Instead, we see the double colorless and a Professor Sycamore. So it looks like Vileplume will be staying put for the turn. And so we go on to our turn, and there is another Professor Sycamore, and that's a lot of resources to throw, but we've got a lot of spaces in our deck, and since it's primarily item cards and a Shaman, I'm not too worried about losing it. And still no Mega Manectric, so hand count is kind of rough. We'll go ahead and throw Rough Seas down, no pun intended there. And oops, we're going to click on Manectric, click on Rough Seas to use that, and we can get another energy on our benched Manectric, and an Assault Laser here for 60 more damage. And of course, one thing you also have to look at is even if and when we knock this Vileplume out, that we probably will see another one immediately, so it will be our opponent who gets to take advantage of the item cards. But instead, we see an AZ denying us the knockout and bringing Regice up front and center, and that is an even bigger problem. Rough Seas gets sent down the drains, and we will see this benched Oddish turn all the way into Vileplume. See if he plays any item cards first. And that is his second AZ. Instead, he just goes directly for the Vileplume, so no VS Seeker. And then another Oddish down onto the bench, and a Resistance Blizzard for 70 damage. That not too big, or 80 damage, sorry. Not too big of a deal with the damage there, but the damage prevention against all Pokemon EX is a problem, as we only have one thing that could damage it, and we once again did not draw into it. So here we can go ahead and throw an energy. Let's see here. We want to send it to Shaman, or we could just simply, oh geez, because that's going to knock us out. So I think we will go ahead and pay the retreat cost here. Bring this one up, and then we can go ahead and attach, and we're going to use Overrun here. And let's see, where do we want to put the damage? Guess we could slowly try to knock that one out since it's just an unevolved Oddish. Definitely some different places we could try to put the damage counters there. But Also worth noting, we did draw into Hex Maniac here, so we can get our item cards available. And I tell you, top decking a Spirit Link would not be the worst thing in the world here. But we do not see that, so instead it looks like the question now becomes, do we want to go for Mega Manectric or do we want the Raikou? And so looking at this here, we definitely want to, I would think, well, do we want to wait another turn, I guess, is another possibility here. Let's see how many energies are in our discard pile here. Any basic lightnings, just the one. So we would have to compress one, and then I think in this instance it might be better just to try and go for the Raikou right now. So we can do that, play the Hex Maniac, and then we can go ahead and discard Battle Compressor and the Max Potion. Healing that damage would have been nice, but instead we're just going to go ahead and grab a Raikou out of the deck. We could also create a stalemate with Jolteon here, but I feel like just being able to deal the damage is probably the better route to go, and in the process we will try to overrun and knock out that Oddish on our opponent's bench. The downside here is, once again, our opponent will get to play item cards, so definitely not what you want to see, and we did not have the VS Seeker to retrieve that Hex Maniac for use. So it looks like we'll be waiting on that second Lysander at some point. We're going to see an Ultra Ball here. Discarding 2 Trainer's Mails for a Miltank. And so lots and lots of Vileplume decks running around for sure. And just not that long ago, I mean, a lot of Vespiquen Vileplumes have been running around, and so we're going to see a Pokemon Center Lady here, healing the Oddish of its 40 damage, and that kind of puts a damper on things. What I was saying about the Vileplume decks, I've also seen Vileplume Giratina running around, so I think a lot of people are looking to play Vileplume come States. Definitely a powerful Pokemon. We see 80 damage come down here, so we'll go ahead and attach to Raikou again. And yikes, that is a lot of damage on our Pokemon, and not really much we can do with it. So we'll go ahead and lay down some damage, and we'll put it on Vileplume this time, I think. And then we will ultimately, inevitably end up conceding 2 prizes with this Manectric EX. So, let's see, just really a lot of our item cards that have been made completely useless in this matchup. Just kind of sycamore them all away. So now we're kind of top decking, but at least we have enough energy to be able to use Raikou's attack on the next turn. And we'll see if our opponent then decides to retreat Regice back to the bench in favor of Miltank, which seems like probably the play that we will see next turn. Fortunately, Raikou also only has a single retreat cost, which would allow us to bring Manectric out, and if we can ever draw a Mega Manectric, that would give us an even better situation. So we'll just go ahead and stick with the basic energy here. And we will use Thunder Lance to put 110 damage onto Regice. And only if we had a way to get rid of that Pokemon tool and Overrun would be able to take it right off the bench. As we do see Miltank come up forward. And we will see an 80 damage attack come out of Miltank. Looks like 60 damage, of course, because of Raikou's ability. So we will see Rough Seas come out. So we will get something here. We'll be able to heal a little bit of damage. And while that won't be enough to prevent Manectric from being knocked out by another powerful, or by another attack from Regice, so we may just want to go ahead and use Thunder Lance for a knockout here. Go ahead and KO the Miltank and grab another prize card. So we see another energy. And Regice once again comes up front, able to free retreat at will. Able to also take advantage of Rough Seas, healing 30 damage off of itself, and then knocking Rough Seas off the board once again with Forest of Giant Plants. We see another Miltank come down. So we will have one more Rough Seas, it looks like, to work with. And Miltank once again coming down to deal 60 damage with its powerful Friend's attack. And that definitely makes things interesting, to say the least. And we'll go ahead and play this Judge and see if we can't hit a Mega Manectric finally. And we do not. Ugh. Talk about rotten luck. Go ahead and put Jolteon down on the board. And we will be retreating this time into Manectric EX. And what we can do here is overrun and take. Oh, no, we cannot. Oh, looks like we clicked in a little too late. So that was my mistake, guys. Jeez. We'll go ahead and lay the damage on Regice anyway. So you talk about making play errors in the heat of the moment, that would be it, because that silly Fighting Fury belt is definitely getting its job done, and we really needed to hit the Mega Manectric off the Judge and have not been able to do so. So all these cards drawn through, we have not hit a single Mega Manectric, we have not discarded one, we have not seen one. So we'll bring up Jolteon for the time being here. And so we see a Flash Energy, and that will enable us to, let's see here. Looks like we are losing the deck out war, so that's definitely not going to do us any favors. And we no longer, other than Jolteon, we won't really have a way to do too much. We can use Swift if we want to damage the Regice. That is always a possibility. Not the most ideal of situations, but it looks like we may have to bring it down to that. So we will go ahead and Thunderlance Miltank for a knockout and await the KO and the inevitable demise of our Raikou here. And again, another item card, so just absolutely nothing we can do here. And we will have to give up a knockout. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there is only one energy card left in the deck, and hopefully for our sake it is not prized. We see Oddish evolve into Gloom on the bench. And AZ coming down, taking Vileplume off the bench. So we're going to see some item cards, presumably. And maybe he's just healing 20 damage. I don't know. I would normally think we'd see some items, and we will. There is an Ultra Ball. So we see Level Ball, and it looks like Professor Birch were discarded. Yep. And then we see a Vileplume come down directly onto the Gloom. So it looks like we got a Vileplume and another Gloom just kind of sitting there, and Regice about ready to deal the finishing blow on our Raikou here, which will really in the prize count not mean a whole lot, but still can be problematic overall, as we're going to have to use Swift not once but twice to knock out this Regice here, as it does have 160 hit points. So we'll bring Jolteon up with Free Retreat. And there is a Professor Sycamore, but that will draw us all the way down to 2 cards in deck. That said, we really don't have much choice. And there's 2 of our Mega Manectrics, of course, just hanging out right there at the bottom. So we'll go ahead and attach that there, and we can use Swift, which will cut through Resistance Blizzard for a tiny little 30 damage. And that's also the last energy card in our deck. So I think it's pretty much acceptable to realize that we've lost this one. Again, the combination of Vileplume and Regice just doing to us exactly what we did to that Night March player the previous round. Definitely exposing a flaw in the deck here. Professor Birch drawing 7 cards for our opponent. And then we will no doubt see a retreat here. And maybe Manaphy will come up and actually start healing some damage off of the Regice, which is another thing that, as well as dealing 60 damage since we can't get to that attack, but really just healing damage there, so we're just going to go ahead and speed up this process. Oh, no, we can't do that. Jeez, Vileplume, you got to be that much of a dick. Can't even let me deck myself out. Oh, boy. So we'll just go ahead and do another Swift attack, I guess, for 30. So we will see, and it looks like on the next turn we will actually see Mineral Pump knock out our Jolteon. Maybe we can at least prevent that from happening. If Vileplume's not going to let us do that, we can force a Lysander here. Go ahead. Attack Pikachu. And that's going to be the game either way. We'll take 60 damage here, 30 more healed off of that Regice, and then we will deck out. No more cards left in deck. And that just shows the sheer power of Regice, much like Jolteon. And so that's a couple of games with Mega Manectric Jolteon. We saw one go our way, we saw one go completely against us. So it just kind of shows how the deck works, you know, and you guys got to see Regice Vileplume as well a little bit in action. So, anyway, that's it for now. I'm Heretic, and I hope to see you guys all very soon. Cheers!